Welcome to Prime Life. We call it Retirement 2.0. Leave each episode with tips and new ideas to help you navigate retirement in our new age. It's your time. Make it count.
This podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not intended as medical, investment, or financial advice. We do not sponsor or endorse any of the individuals, companies, products, or services featured on this podcast. Any statements or opinions expressed are of the individual who makes them. We hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Prime Life Podcast. We're excited to be here today. Joseph, how are you doing?
Awesome, Laura. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good to be here.
Yes, it's great to be here with you again. Mary, how are you? And, just jump right on into introducing our guest, if you would.
Well, thank you, Laura. I'm actually doing great. I'm full from lunch. So we had a nice lunch out with our interns. That was really fun. So thank you. Yeah, I'm very excited to introduce Dr. Dorian Mintzer. She has many initials after her name, and she will explain that to you. She's a certified retirement coach, consultant, writer, and popular speaker. She combines her personal and professional experiences as a therapist, coach, and teacher with expertise in adult development, life planning, and positive psychology, my favorite. And she works to help people navigate the second half of life. Dorian, welcome to our program, and we'd love for you to tell our audience a little bit about yourself and why you do what you do.
Okay, well, I'm delighted to be here, so thank you for inviting me. And I, as you mentioned, I'm a retirement coach. I really started out, I love working with people in life transitions. And if you think about it, all of life is a series of transitions. So during earlier stages of my life, I worked with people around marriage and around building families and around career and around divorces and around aging. And I think that what I found for myself is my work has sort of paralleled my own life. And so as I got older, I'm one of the, what they call the leading edge boomers. So back in 2006, we all were turning 60. And I knew that my being 60 was very different from my parents being 60. And I just had been really interested in transitions and adult development and positive psychology and life planning. And I began to really think about, what is it about the second half of life? Knowing that we're living longer, the landscape of retirement's changing, and it just sort of morphed into finding this niche. Although I still do work with people of different ages also, I think that I'd get a little bored if I only just worked with people of a certain age. But I'm so excited with just the potential that we have, since, the likelihood is once you reach the quote traditional retirement age of 62 or 65, you might have 20, 30, even 40 more years of life. And that's a long time.
So I'm excited for our conversation today. There's a lot to unpack in that. I guess let's start with the basics. Second half of life was mentioned. Is that a mindset or is that an age?
Well, that's an interesting question. We work a lot with trying to help people not have ageism. I mean, ageism is rampant in our society. And so for people, sometimes, you get to be 40 or 50 and it's like, oh, half my life is over. Now people are living till maybe 100. And age 85 and older is the fastest growing segment of the population. Middle age now is thought about as more like 50, 55 to 75. So that's a long stretch of vitality and being able to think about how you want to live. So it's not just more at the end of being old. Although that can happen for people. So part of it's a mindset. I think it's not chronological age, but how you allow yourself to age. There's a study that I always like to mention. By the time people are 65, or research that, by the time people are 65, it's 30% genetics, which is not a small number if you happen to have a lot of genetics working against you. But 70% are things you can have some control over. So attitude, a growth mindset, exercising your body and brain, meaningful relationships, connection, engagement, purpose and meaning, good nutrition. And there's an additional study out of Yale by Becca Levy that says that a positive attitude about aging, a more growth mindset rather than kind of a fixed mindset or believing some of the ageist myths, can give you actually 7.5 more years of life.
That's impressive. That's a noticeable amount of life.
That's a noticeable amount of life, yeah.
It's almost as if you have listened to every one of our podcasts, because you really just integrated a whole bunch of themes and discussions we've had. And you referenced chronological age and biological age. That's a fascinating topic in and of itself. I myself was thinking about this not too long ago, and you referenced 40 more years of life. I'm almost of this mindset. It's like, I'm not going to sit around and do nothing for 40 years. I want to keep working until whenever. I don't even have a date in my mind. So I guess, my question, and maybe touching on the positive mindset, you've done a TED talk about the bonus years, which to me is a positive way of looking at,
Right.
quote unquote aging. Maybe you could talk a little bit about what that means, and what does a retirement coach actually do? Like, do you actually retire? like, should you retire? Yeah, I'll let you just take it from there and you go wherever you want with that.
Well, a lot of good questions in that. With the old notion, I always like to start with the old notion of aging. The idea was you achieve, first you learn, then you achieve, and you maybe have a family if you're lucky, or choose not to, and however you want to live your life, and you get to the top of your ladder. And with the old notion of aging, it's sort of all downhill after 60. And so I love this image of a friend and colleague of mine, Bill Sadler, who's a sociologist. He said, with the old notion, the more ageist notion, you put on your seatbelt, you hold on to the throttle, and you just pray for a safe landing. Now, however, with medical advances and, a lot of factors, better nutrition, people do have that option of living 20, 30, maybe 40 more years. And people refer to that as the bonus years. And you can sort of imagine or picture kind of sort of a plateau with a lot of hills and valleys. I like to think about those are the bonus years, a lot of ups and downs. But if you choose, you've got this vast opportunity to perhaps have new dreams, perhaps begin to do things you didn't have time for before. So I love the notion of bonus years. And the TEDx talk that you had, mentioned, I did focus on using your bonus years as a time to learn, grow, and evolve. And it is influenced by the research I mentioned that, a positive mindset, keeping our mind active, feeling vital, being connected, all are really important. And if you think about it, when you work and or when you're actively parenting, you have a reason to get out of bed in the morning. You generally have connection, engagement, purpose, and meaning, usually meaningful relationships, self-esteem. I know COVID sort of has put little cramps into things where people were working more from home. But there are these things that get you out of bed in the morning. Retirement's changing, as you were sort of saying, Joseph, that, with living so much longer, a lot of people, first of all, love what they're doing and don't want to stop working. Second, because we're living longer, you don't want to outlive your money. And so many people need to keep working. Sometimes, though, people want to keep working and there's mergers or acquisitions or, we saw furloughing that happened during the pandemic. So sometimes it may not be choice. And also health and wellness may impact whether you can work or not work. But what it's led to is that retirement is no longer just a destination. It's actually, as I was alluding to before, a transition or a journey. And all transitions have an end, a period of unknown, and a new beginning. I always like to ask my clients, and I'll ask this of your listeners and of you, think about transitions in your life. Do you, whether it have been going to school, working, whatever different transitions you've had, do you have more trouble with the end, the unknown, or the new beginning? It's helpful to think about that. You might have trouble with all of it, none of it, parts of it. It may help you have an idea of how you're going to approach this next stage of life. Some people, there's an excitement. Some people, as I mentioned, want to keep working, but maybe use their skills in a different way. Some people want to think about what their strengths are and what their values are, and just think about doing something that maybe has more socially conscious meaning, a way to give back. Some people really just need to keep working for the money, and some are burned out and just say enough. But it's still important to think about how are you going to build connection, engagement, and purpose and meaning in your life. So what my sense is as a retirement coach, I view myself as a retirement transition coach. I like to try to help people think about what's next. Some people like to come ahead of time. I have a number of clients that are in their 40s or 50s, and they're already starting to think about it. Many know, knowing themselves, that they really are concerned, who am I without my work identity? What can I do? I don't really think about myself other than work. And so some people are terrified. Some people are so excited, and there's so many things they want to do. It's like there's not going to be enough time in the day. Some people want just the honeymoon phase. But then what I find is often people will come back maybe a few months, a year, a few years later saying something's missing. So a retirement coach, from my perspective, is helping you with that transition, helping you assess who you are, what's important to you, what your values are, what your strengths are, what your skills are, and really helping you think about your unique life. What will keep the juices flowing inside of you? What will help you keep learning and growing and evolving? What are the relationships you want to nurture? What are things that you want to do or say so you don't reach the end of your life with regrets? What are things perhaps you didn't have time for before, that you want to develop? So, part of what I do as a retirement coach is help people think about those things at whatever stage they are. And how I work with people varies on who the person is and kind of what ideas they have of how they want to live this next stage of life, or to help them open up to possibilities. Because even if people have illnesses, terminal illnesses, chronic illnesses, how you deal with it makes a big difference on being able to live successfully. So I really kind of like to think about co-creating with the people I work with, to really think about what's next. How do you want to live your life? What will help you come alive? You may have to change some of your dreams because maybe you have some health limitations. You still need dreams. You still need things to look forward to. And so my work is trying to be there, sometimes be a cheerleader, sometimes help people, really think about what are things they're proud of. What are things that, were important. How do you want to kind of build that into your life now? And how do you want to go toward it? So I like to thinking about what you're retiring to and also what you're retiring with. It's helpful if you don't have hobbies, start doing things, start developing some other interest or other hobbies, other parts of your identity, so that if you're not working or not working in the same way, you have an idea of who you still are. And there's so many more options. Sometimes people just don't even realize that, maybe they can work part-time. Maybe there's a phased retirement. Maybe they can, volunteer. Maybe they can write stories. There's no right way. That's a long-winded answer, but
Oh, that's great. I mean, I love your analogy that it's a journey, not a destination. When I was in the fitness business many years ago, that's what we used to tell people about fitness. And this is really fitness of mind, body, soul. It's a holistic approach that you've outlined. And you make a lot of great points. You keep talking about, learning, growing, and evolving as we age. And you gave a lot of great examples. But for some people, it can be a little overwhelming. Like, okay, so what is a way to chunk it out if someone feels maybe less inspired or a little bit overwhelmed, like what do I do first, second, and third? And I know you did say that, everyone's different, but like, how do you, with your positive psychology, how do you implement that to kind of put people at ease? And again, like you said, you're a marketing person, you meet people where they are. So how do you do that with your coaching?
And we'll get that answer after a brief word from our commercial sponsors.
Nassau is always working harder to be your carrier of choice. We offer insurance products that can help you meet your retirement goals, such as protecting your savings, securing lifetime income, or paying for healthcare costs. We're dedicated to providing best-in-class service and are keeping things simple, and we'll have your back. We have around 400,000 policyholders and contract holders and have been doing this for a long time, 170 years. But we remain humble enough to always try to improve. For more information, visit nfg.com. Nassau insurance products are issued by Nassau Life and Annuity Company of Hartford, Connecticut, Nassau Life Insurance Company, East Greenbush, New York, or Nassau Life Insurance Company of Kansas, Overland Park, Kansas. Subsidiaries of Nassau Financial Group. Products are not available in all areas. Policyholder counts are for all Nassau companies as of September 30th, 2022, and are subject to change.
Coverite is the first digital concierge health insurance platform focused on Medicare. Their mission is to make Medicare more transparent and accessible for America's 60 million Medicare beneficiaries. By simplifying a traditionally confusing and complex decision, Coverite delivers a simple, seamless, and hassle-free plan selection and enrollment experience. Try the Coverite platform and see for yourself why they've been referred to as the TurboTax for Medicare. Visit coverite.com/podcast to learn more.
Well, part's establishing a relationship with the person I'm working with and really trying to understand from them what kind of makes them tick, what has given them pleasure in their life, what are things they're proud of, what are some mistakes they've learned from, we all make mistakes. I also find it helpful, the book I co-authored, The Couples Retirement Puzzle, 10 Must-Have Conversations for Creating an Amazing Life Together. It was written for couples because there were studies saying couples weren't talking, but it's actually helpful for whomever. And the person who wrote the foreword even said newlyweds should be given it, because you need to start thinking about and talking, not necessarily about retirement, but how to have conversations, how to think about things, how to create your vision. And what I find helpful is I like to use the framework of puzzle for people, because it's a verb and a noun. And you need to think about and puzzle out for yourself what's important to you. What are things you want to carry into and maybe transfer to this next stage of life? What are things you don't want to do? What are relationships you may want to repair? So you need to puzzle it out and then have whoever's important in your life. It could be a partner, it could be a spouse, it could be just, a good friend or siblings or adult children, whoever's going to be on the journey with you, and learn about what their vision is. And then you begin to think about where are they aligned, where are they different. And I like the idea that there are all these pieces, they're these puzzle pieces of our life. And it's not going to fit together like a jigsaw puzzle, but things like finances and health and wellness, I think, are the two biggest puzzle pieces. So it might be important to think about how they're impacting choices that you have. Health and wellness may impact, as I alluded to before, if you can continue work. The likelihood is the older we get, if you're in a relationship or with friends, the more you're either going to be a caregiver or a care receiver. So needing to think about those things, needing to think about what helps you feel alive, needing to focus on, the 10 must-have conversations are finances, health and wellness, expectations that you have for a partner, spouse, adult children, expectations they may have of you. All of these with friends, relatives may be really important. Issues around sexuality. We still need and thrive on touch and connection. And it's not all, downhill. There used to be this quote funny Hallmark little book called Sex Over 60, and you open it and it was empty. Not the case.
This is a family show.
Oh. Issues on time together, time alone, issues about spirituality. In the best of relationships, you still need other friends. We need community. People think about legacy. And I keep coming back, you were asking about positive psychology. I think well-being, flourishing is such an important part of life. And as I mentioned before, connection, engagement, purpose and meaning, meaningful relationships, a sense of agency, a sense that you matter, all of these are important. So it is important to think about, how do you incorporate that into your life? How do you build it into your life, even if it hasn't been there? How do you let yourself develop it so that, you feel engaged and vital, and fight against the myths that, you're irrelevant or invisible? Unfortunately, as I said before, there is ageism in our society, but there's also what's referred to as internalized ageism, where we can believe those myths. And we can, sort of ties into Laura's initial question, we can believe that an age means a certain thing, rather than it's our attitude, not necessarily our age. Somebody can seem very, quote, old at age 40 and be very much alive and well, in their 90s. Yes, we age. I'm not trying to be Pollyanna about it. Our bodies age, there's more proneness to balance issues. There can be cognitive issues. But it doesn't just, it's not a disease. It's like, the better we take care of ourselves. You were a fitness expert, it sounds like, Mary, that the more we can take care of ourselves with a sense of what is realistic. My husband just turned 91, and I sometimes say to him, and he still works a day a week, and we ride e-bikes. And I say to him, slow down a little bit. You're exercising as though you were still 60. And he'll say sometimes jokingly, what do you mean 60? I think I'm 27 inside, So, but, you don't want to hurt yourself, but you want to, you want to stay vital and engaged. So.
I love that. I like hearing different avenues and paths that individuals can take as they, as their age progresses, right? So my mother, for example, she had a phased retirement. She was working at a university. She phased out. So it was about a 2-year process. She retired, and that lasted about 3 months. And then she went back to work. And for her, she just found that in retirement, she wasn't doing what she thought she would be doing. And she wanted to go back and experience that. She has since retired again. And it's working out well for her. She's attending classes at that same university. She's learning, and she's working towards her bachelor's degree, which she didn't have time to do while she was working full time. So I think it's great for people to share stories of what their retirement looks like. It can be different for everyone, and it will be. And even looking through, you either love it or you fall somewhere in between with social media. You see stories about people retiring early or retiring earlier than the typical 65, I should say. And it's interesting to watch that unfold. So I guess my question to you would be, how has your work as a retirement coach, how has that continued to evolve as, I'll say reality has evolved? I imagine that the conversations grow, change, and evolve as the landscape does around us. So what has that been like for you?
Again, these are good questions. So yeah, it has been changing, and partly it depends on at what age people, are wanting to approach what's happening, and what their own interests are, what their health is, what their financial situation is. All of that may impact retirement considerations. There's also been a lot more now thought about and written in terms of what retirement is all about. Way back, back when I think about when I turned 60, I'm now 77 and I still work. And I consider my work like a portfolio kind of job. That's another tangent I can get on in a second. But back when when I was turning 60, 60 was old in my parents' generation. 60 isn't old now. But for a while, people were saying, oh, 60 is the new 40, 70 is the new 50. I don't like that because that's still holding on to youth. I think 70 is the new 70, 80 is the new 80, 60 is the new 60. And I think it's helpful to recognize that. And helpful to recognize, some people talk about, extended middle age, second adulthood. Some people even have coined the term middle essence with parallels to adolescence. And if you think about it, who am I? Where do I want to live? Who do I want to be connected with? What do I want to do? Parallels. However, what's different is hopefully there's a perspective and a wisdom, that comes from, dealing with all the ups and downs of life. So during this period of the last few decades, more has been learned about retirement. Books back at the beginning were things about it's not your mother's retirement or not your parents' retirement. That now there are books about what do retirees want, and really realizing, the quote boomer and beyond population is not homogenous. So there's a lot more known. There have been more studies, so that informs some of the work I do. There's a lot more emphasis. I now put a lot of emphasis and really like to work with people around their strengths, which I've done before. And that's another part that's a positive psychology concept. Oftentimes when people are younger and, if I'm working with them or others are working with them for, just career change, people sometimes are unhappy with work. So it might be helping people come to terms with, like, what are your strengths? Are you able to use them now in the job that you're doing? And if not, can you envision being able to use them or use them in another part of your life? And I use strengths a lot now with people trying to think about this retirement transition. What are the strengths that you have? What are maybe some of the lesser strengths that you haven't been able to use that you'd like to develop? So it might be, helping people think about, what can I do in a different way? So that informs my coaching with people. You mentioned about your mother, who just sounds like a wonderful example, of somebody in the second half of life. Lifelong learning programs, they're everywhere now. There often are Osher lifelong learning centers that are often affiliated with universities, funded initially by Bernard Osher. There are other universities and places that have lifelong learning programs. Usually, and it's a way of connection, engagement, and purpose and meaning. Generally there's a little fee that's involved that you can become part of the community. Many of them have lunch and learn programs, and then you can take classes or teach classes. But keeping your mind stimulated. So my coaching work has changed as understanding and awareness has changed in terms of different aspects about retirement, different aspects about attitude and mindset. Just really thinking about applying more of positive psychology, helping people think about life completion, being able to maybe write memoirs or put together the photos, or setting up intergenerational situations where you have children or grandchildren interview you. There's stories to be told. I think, Laura, you mentioned about stories. I love people's stories. That's what motivates me, to do the work that I do. And, to help people realize there are many more stories to create. I really also like the concept that we can't change past events, but we can change the impact they have on us. I've been saying that for years. And then there's been a really nice book, Life is in the Transitions, by Bruce Feiler, that I interviewed him in my program. And he says it in some beautiful ways. And I often, I recommend books to people too. And he talks about, we can't change the event, but we can change the stories we tell ourselves. And the other part that he brings to it that I like is he says, throughout life, there are all kinds of disruptors, and disruptors in life create kind of our resilience. And then there are major life quakes that people have. And so a lot of my work as a retirement coach might be helping people work through some of the disruptors, some of the life quakes, to reach a point where they believe in themselves, that there's still more to learn, to give, to connect, to be. And again, going back to school is one way, lifelong learning, taking up photography, painting. I mean, Grandma Moses.
Can I jump in on
Sorry.
that lifelong,
Yeah.
on that lifelong learning point?
Yeah.
If we've never lived in a point, the world has never had a point in time where it's so easy to learn. There's so much online. You can do it for free. You can explore it for low or no cost. And then, like Laura's mom, if you really fall in love with it, you go for a full program. If I could just jump in and ask you a question about, the planning side. So you mentioned finances a few times, and Mary mentioned the holistic approach. So how holistic do you get with your clients when it comes to the financial piece? Like, do you talk to their planners, or do you help them through some of that? Because, I think one of the big challenges, at least personally in my mind, is and will be like, do I have enough to live and spend the way I want to spend? So I'm just curious how you deal with that part of the equation.
Now an ad from one of our sponsors. Remember when you could trust the news? Well, then check out Walter. Walter is the free, no-nonsense newsletter for grown-ups that comes to your inbox 3 times a week. From current trends, aging in place, travel, retirement, and everything in between, including a dash of pop culture trivia and throwbacks, Walter is a great way to start your mornings and to stay informed. Oh, and did we mention that it's free? Check us out at thisiswalter.com. Get smart. Get Walter.
Well, I'm not trained as a financial planner, and I do recommend to everybody, no matter how much or how little money you have, that you talk with a financial planner, and preferably with a financial planner that has a holistic viewpoint, because it's not just a number. It's how you want to live your life and how you want your money to work for you. And I do sometimes, confer with financial planners. In the past, and still to some degree, some financial planners really just say it's the number and they don't have a holistic viewpoint. Because I'm not a financial planner, I deal much more with the soft side of it, the relationship issues. But because I've also done a lot of work with women and money and couples and money, and have enough savvy, having dealt with my own and our own finances, I help people think about the questions they need to ask and how to find a good financial planner. And I can, partner with them if the particular people want me to. And sometimes I'll get referrals from financial planners, or sometimes even do speaking engagements for financial planners so that their clients are able to hear about and learn about some of the other aspects of money. But your point is so well taken. But it's finances, but it's much more than finances. And I think that part of what has changed, tied into Laura's question before, part of what's changed in terms of planning is recognizing it's not just finances. You sometimes see some of the ads on TV that make it seem like, if you've got that number, you're set. If you've got that, money does not bring happiness. So if you've got the money, but you don't, know how to have friends, or don't, do things that stimulate you or learn or give you that connection and meaning and well-being, there's a dark side to retirement, which is depression, too much isolation. I mean, we've seen this also with COVID, drinking, drug abuse. Unfortunately, there is that dark side too, so that it is important.
You're not recommending that, right? You're not recommending drinking.
I'm not recommending that, but I'm saying that it can be, if you don't have any sense of purpose and meaning and connection, and you're too isolated, it's not unusual. Sometimes people self-medicate, and there have been some studies, talking about that darker side and the potential for depression and drugs and drinking. We really need each other. We need the connection. Intergenerational connections are important. There are actually some studies that older isolated men have higher suicide risks. And women can be depressed. And I think you have interviewed people. We're not all in relationships, and by the time you get older, by life circumstances or by choice, many people will be aging alone. So it's important to build community. The term solo agers is often used, but we need each other and we need community. And this can be a part of, again, retirement planning or just, planning, life transition planning.
Solo aging is becoming more of a reality as there's a higher divorce rate. I've recently learned about older adults. Exactly. I'll let Mary take the mic here, but that was super interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Joseph. So as we come to a close, Laura always asks the last question, but what I'd like to ask is simply this. So you've outlined quite a bit, all great stuff, heartfelt, inspiring. But if there's one theme or one point that you'd like our audience to take away, what would that be?
That's a hard question, but I think believe in yourself. And to try not to just internalize some of what is abounding around us in terms of it's all downhill after a certain age. There is a reality that we will all age if we're lucky. I mean, in a sense, we start aging from birth. So it's like believing in yourself and trying to maximize how you connect in the world. I mean, I truly do believe connection, engagement, and purpose and meaning is so important. And it doesn't have to be purpose with a big P. It can be how you connect with neighbors, how you connect with children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews. But a sense of connecting, a sense of knowing that you have stories to tell, you have things to share, and to value that, and again, it's sort of that believing in yourself and not allowing yourself to become invisible, not giving up on yourself, not internalizing those negative, sort of notions about aging, to think about what are things you're proud of, what have you accomplished, to think about your resilience, to think about having gratitude. I think that part is important too, really being grateful if we're so lucky we get to live long lives, and to forgive ourselves and forgive other people. None of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. And I think it's important to both believe in yourself, accept yourself with all your imperfections, and to try as best you can to repair any relationships you need to repair and feel really engaged in the world. Tell your story, write a memoir, think about your legacy, not necessarily a money legacy, but how do you want to be remembered? I think we all want to be remembered, little thumbprints or footprints or whatever.
I love that. And as Mary alluded, we like to ask the guests at the tail of each episode. And again, you've nodded to pieces, but I'm curious about your answer here. Your work is important. You go through and you're helping individuals and couples navigate transitions. But why is it you do the work that you do?
I really love it. My energy comes from helping people get in touch with their energy, and helping people, really recognize that life can be as full as we can let it be. So I do get a lot from it. I alluded to it about a portfolio career, and I still am working. I'm 77, and I do a little bit of therapy. I do coaching. I do speaking. I do writing. I have a monthly interview series and a weekly podcast series. I love connecting with people, and I also do workshops and speaking. My energy comes from helping people believe in themselves and recognize that, until our last breath. I have a dear friend who's 91, Jan Hively, whose mantra, which I I love is meaningful work, paid or unpaid, through our last breath. And I like really working with people, helping them discover themselves, maybe even for the first time at this later stage of life. But to realize, if you're open to learning and being and connecting, be alive, as long as you can be alive in a healthy way, be connected.
I love that. And it's such a great segue here. So if people want to connect with you and learn more about the work that you do and partner with you for future endeavors, what is the best way for them to do so?
Site is www.revolutionizeretirement.com. One word, revolutionizeretirement.com. You can learn more about me there, my programs. I have a monthly free webinar series on the fourth Tuesday of each month, open to the public and professionals. And once you sign up, you get a recording link after the call. To celebrate the 10th year of it, which was last year, I re-released as podcasts earlier of the interviews. So the podcasts are available again, free on any platform. And my email, the easiest email for me is dorianmintzer@gmail.com or through my website. So that would be how people can reach me. And I would invite listeners, sign up as always the week before the fourth Tuesday webinar, and sign up. You have to sign up each month, and there isn't anything in December because it's just too close to the holidays then.
That's amazing. We'll put all of those links in the show notes. But again, Dorian, Joseph, and Mary, thank you so much for your time today, this conversation, and the value it'll bring to our listeners. So to those of you out there, please tune in next week for another episode of the Prime Life Podcast. Thanks so much.
Remember to subscribe to the Prime Life Podcast anywhere you find podcasts. You can find all of our episodes, contact information, and more on our website, primelifepodcast.com. Stay connected with us. Follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.